So India energy needs are enormous with the daily consumption of around 5 million barrels and a refining capacity of 250 MMTPA and a million metric tons per annum, which is the third largest in the world. To maintain energy security and to fulfill the objective of providing energy justice to each of its citizens, Indian energy companies buy from all major oil producers in the world. On an average, India has the unique distinction of servicing 60 million visitors of its petrol pumps every single day. So now, due to the ongoing Russian-Ukraine conflict, the US announced the banning the import of Russian oil, which led to the surge in international oil prices by a 14-year high. In this context, we can say the surge in oil prices, however, does not imply a decline in requirements. So we can say now, therefore, it is important for the government to ensure access to affordable energy to our citizens. Encouraging domestic production of oil and transitioning to alternate sources of energy are two of the viable solutions that can be taken to overcome this problem. So, India's oil import consumption, if I'm talking about, the question is what is the current scenario in this context? In Indian oil import, or we can say in consumption point of view, what is the current scenario? So, India is the world's third largest oil consumer at around 5 million barrels a day, behind the US and China. So the oil demand is growing at 3 to 4% a year in the country. So by this estimate, in a decade, India could be consuming about 7 million barrels a day. So inferring from the latest data available under the Petroleum Planning and Analysis Cell, in short, we can say PPAC, India's oil import dependence based on consumption was 85% in 1920. Okay, it's a 2019 to 20, you can say. So, which declined marginally to 84.4% in 2020 to 21. It rose again to 85.6% in 2021 to 22. According to PPAC, India imported 212.2 million tons of crude oil in 2021 to 22, up from 196.5 million tons in the previous year. For April 2022 to 23, the oil import dependence was around 86.4% against 85.9% in the corresponding year ago period. It has been argued that due to increased demand, the consumption of oil has gone up, which has marginalized the efforts being made to increase output. Higher crude oil import bill is expected to dent the macroeconomic parameters. So, what initiatives have been taken to cut down crude oil imports? In March 2015, the Prime Minister of India inaugurated the Urja Sangam in 2015. So, India's then biggest global hydrocarbon meet aimed at shaping India's energy security. At the stakeholders were argued to increase the domestic production of oil and gas to reduce import dependence from 77% to 67% by 2022 and further to 50% by 2030. The government has also introduced various policies for increasing domestic production of oil and natural gas under the Production Sharing Contract. In short, we can say PSC. It's Production Sharing Contracts. So regime discovered small field policy, hydrocarbon, exploration and license policy. So new exploration, license policy, etc. So however, an underlying issue with domestic oil production is that oil and gas projects from exploration to production have a long gestation period. Besides, pricing and tax policies are not stable, and the oil and gas businesses require huge capital. It's need a huge capital, so investors are often wary of taking risks. The government of India promotes the ethanol blending program, in short we can say EBP, with the aim of reducing the country's dependence on crude oil imports. It's cutting down, carbon emissions and boosting farmers' income. The government has advanced the target for 20% ethanol blending in petrol. We can call it E20, So it's 2025, from 2030 it can be happen. Question is, what can be done to reduce India oil import dependence? What can be done to reduce India's oil import dependence? In this context, encouraging domestic production, it must be kept in mind that India's demand for oil is only going to go up as we go for 10% GDP growth, and that India will continue to be an oil economy for many more years to come. So the only way India can reduce its dependence on import is to increase the size of India-owned exploration and production assets overseas also. That is what China has done. So the public sector oil giant oil and natural gas corporation, in short we can say ONGC, is also taking a various steps to increase the production by redevelopment of existing matured field and development of marginal field. It can be new marginal field. So further improve oil recovery and enhanced oil recovery technologies are being inducted for enhancing recovery from mature fields. Alternate green sources, if I'm talking about that, another way out for India is to expand its basket and focus on green energy. With the economy gaining momentum, demand for power is on the upswing. With the COP26 commitment in place, the demand for renewable energy is at an all-time high, which calls for substantial capacity addition. So the wind sector gained momentum thanks to private investment and government initiatives coupled with a regulatory support. So, however, backed by global supply of solar cells and modules and favorable policies, if I'm talking about, then we can say the solar power emerged more competitive than a wind power. So a solar power emerged more competitive than wind power. Then you can imagine that how the question is how focusing on energy generation from wind can be helpful in this context. How focusing on energy generation from wind can be helpful in this context. So, wind power generation developed on the foundation of the Electricity Act 2003 and the establishment of a robust home ground manufacturing base. More recently, the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy set a target of installing 5 GW of offshore capacity by 2022 and 30 GW by 2030. So while both solar and wind are susceptible to intraday and seasonal variability, so its variability from a technological and a resources perspective as well as from the commercial angle, wind is a better bet in helping India achieve its RE aspirations. So, however, lately there is a policy overdrive in favor of solar, which is resulting in a decline in wind capacity addition. While there is a short-term tariff advantage, in the long term it is essential to have a balanced, diversified resource mix. If I'm talking about wind, so it's like wind is more desirable in India's power basket due to higher capacity utilization and throughout the day generation of power. It also complements solar, providing a more consistent and viable generation profile. So now we can say that despite the initiatives for reducing India's oil import dependence, the situation remains dismal. So India will need to work its policy around this reality. The strategy should be that key energy uses like for cooking and transport, it can be shifted to other sources like green energy. On their part, the policymakers have to ensure that all stakeholders are on board and there is no policy flip-flop. So this was the discussion. So thanks for watching.